Segment 2, Golden Black Live. Gene Keady is in the building. He has shown up. Kathy O'Brien just dropped him off, so we will have the coach here next segment. Brian, if you can stay warm enough, keep the blood circulating, we're going to have another segment here. It is cold in here. I think Gene's right. He's got a nice jacket on. He's in good shape. All right.
An app on my phone that does everything except the space heater. How has Apple not thought of that?
And then they outlawed him here in our building because I used to run the building. You could see the meter running like this.
Well, I wasn't going to tell anyone.
I'm going to put it on. Big weekend in basketball recruiting. You've got a couple official visit previews with Trey Kaufman and Ryan Kalkbrenner on the site. Tell me what Purdue fans, what's at stake here, which is a lot. There's a lot of intrigue, obviously, in the Kalkbrenner situation. But give us what you're seeing from that standpoint this weekend, and what you hope to see hope to learn after this weekend.
Well, Purdue has a great class, 2/3 of the way full currently, with Jaden Ivey and Ethan Morton already committed. Two of the better guards, I think, Matt Painter's recruited in his decade and a half recruiting for Purdue. They need somebody for the front court with that third scholarship. Need is relative, but you want a well-balanced class. I think center is something they really want to address in this class. Everybody knows Hunter Dickinson, the blue chip center they've been recruiting for years, is still on the table for them, but also Ryan Kalkbrenner. Purdue has been that school that comes in after a bunch of people and offers, and is pretty well positioned here to potentially be the school for when all is said and done. Now, he unofficially visited in August, and that really put Purdue in a nice spot with him. And now he's coming back for the official visit, kind of right around the time where he should be moving toward a decision, because Stanford and Creighton are probably the two other big ones with him, and he's already visited both those places. I just think this seems to be setting up pretty well for Purdue with the 7-footer from St. Louis. Thing with him is he's a really good student. He's a 4.0 guy, wants to do engineering. Obviously, Purdue can sell good great engineering. Stanford is never easy to recruit against for a high academic player, and that will not be the case again here as well. Stanford, I think, is going to draw a long look from him. But Purdue has a better basketball program. Purdue has a great rep for big men. He's very much like Matt Harms a little bit in that he's a 7-footer, but he's kind of narrow, but he really moves well. He can shoot a little bit. The difference between him and Dickinson is Dickinson's a better player. He helps you more right away, much more refined, bigger, physically ready. Kalkbrenner is a better prospect than he is a player, and he's a pretty damn good player right now, too. But he's that guy year 2, year 3, you might really have something on your hands here. But the timing of all this lines up to where now things are probably going to start happening, because Kalkbrenner's official visit to Purdue is a big one. Coaches go back on the road Monday. Purdue will go meet with Hunter Dickinson out in Maryland, kind of feel him out to see kind of where he is with things. He's visiting Michigan this weekend. But it would seem to me like things are starting to bottleneck here a little bit in terms of a couple guys Purdue's been recruiting for a long time, moving toward decisions. Ben Carlson, who's more of a forward than a center, officially visits next weekend. So if nothing happens with one of the centers, Carlson, is obviously still visiting. And if something does happen with the centers, no reason to think Purdue doesn't at least bring in Carlson, play that out, see what ultimately he wants to do, and then make a decision on whether you want to try to oversign or not. I don't know. But the other official visitor, Trey Kaufman,
tell him about
the 2021. He's from Silver Creek High School in Sellersburg, not exactly Boilermaker country, right there between Louisville and Indiana and Kentucky. We can throw them in there too. Really good prospect. A guy Purdue got in on early. Wasn't the first offer. Simply
6'8".
6'8". Very much like Vince Edwards. He's very similar to Vince Edwards. A little bit more upside to him. He's going to be taller. He's going to be maybe a little bit more interior-oriented than Vince Edwards was. Same skill set. Kind of looks like him.
Yeah, he does. The picture on the site does.
Just a really versatile forward who's only getting better. You can tell he's still kind of a puppy dog in the sense that he's developing physically. He's getting more confident. He's getting more aggressive. He's going to get stronger. When you take the skill set you see in what he is now, and you project that to when his body's there and his demeanor is there, you're really looking at a guy who could jump over a lot of people in the national rankings. We have Rivals.com has him 90th in their new rankings today, dropping from where he was last time. But I think he's a top 50-ish level of player in a loaded Indiana 2021 class.
Yeah, you know recruiting better than just about anyone. When you look at that, is there strategy? I mean, when you're Matt Painter trying to get guys to commit, is this with Kalkbrenner and with Dickinson, is there any you're just trying to get one of the two, but is there anything to be said for you force someone's hand by having somebody else here? Is that even come into play with a guy like Dickinson?
Well, no, you don't shake down players like Hunter Dickinson. You just don't, because you do things on his terms. Now, look, if it's a situation where you want player A more than player B, but you're taking both of them, player B, you have reason to believe player B wants in, you might tell player A, hey, something's happening here. So just FYI, we're not pressuring you, but if this is something you want to take under advisement, by all means, here it is. That dynamic happens sometimes. I don't think necessarily there's a dynamic here where if Kalkbrenner wants to commit, they say, hold off, we got to call Dickinson first. That's not happening. First guy to commit is coming.
Yeah. You had a chance to meet with and talk to Matt Painter yesterday, and for some things you're working on as we get in advance of the 2019-2020 season. Frame of mind of the coach. Any impressions that from your sit down with him yesterday? Or was it yesterday? Yeah,
it was yesterday.
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
not really. I mean, it's just all typical preseason stuff. You know, I don't know if he said anything that necessarily surprised me. I mean, he thinks they could be a good defensive team. He says that every year. But now I think when you look at their pieces, you know, you've got two of the top 5 defensive players in the Big Ten, probably Nogel Easter and Matt Harms. That's a hell of a starting point. I think some of what left the program might help you a little bit from a defensive perspective. Now, I do think Purdue is going to be more athletic, is going to be a little bit more interchangeable all over the place. I think you know, they can play bigger, and that can make them a pretty good rebounding team, provided those lineups are viable. I know they've put some effort into playing with Travion Williams and Matt Harms together, and then that opening up some opportunities too for Evan Boudreau, who they expect to help them this year. I know you look at it on paper and you look at the way the season ended and you say, where do the minutes come from? Well, it sure sounds to me like they're planning on using him. And if you play two bigs together, that opens up more minutes for more bigs. So it stands to reason to suggest that they might be able to find some minutes for Evan Boudreau between the 4 and 5 even. But that's going to be obviously something to watch, how Purdue plays, but also who they play. You know, I don't know if there's been a year where the starting lineup's been more open than it is now. I think obviously Matt Harms is one. Nogel Eastern obviously is another. Aaron Wheeler obviously has a significant advantage at his spot, although I don't know, you know, if you necessarily write down that one in pen the way you write down Nogel Eastern and Matt Harms, who might be two of the best players in the Big Ten this year. But the wings are wide open. You look at all the minutes and shots that Ryan Klein vacated and Carson Edwards vacated. You don't want to replace them. You don't necessarily have to replace them with equal players or the same style of player, but they've got a lot of guards. They got a lot of wings between those two spots, and it's going to be a matter of who emerges here from here on out, whether it's Jihad Proctor, whether it's Sasha Stefanovic, whether it's Eric Hunter, whether it's Brandon Newman, whoever it may be. They've got a lot of guys competing for a couple of spots here. I think in a perfect world, you'd like to have a guy you know damn certain is your guy there who's going to be a really good player. But the competition, you know, throughout the summer and going into the fall here is going to be pretty close, I think.
Who do you think will emerge as the leader? Will there be an individual that will do that? I mean, is it Nogel Eastern? Is it Matt Harms? So how do you view the leadership on this?
Leadership should be a strength of this team because Nogel Eastern and Matt Harms, to me, seem like two of the best leaders he's ever had at Purdue. Both guys are ideally suited for leadership. They're wired to the smallest detail for leadership. And this is their team now. So now opportunity and compatibility with that element of the game line up perfectly here. You know, those two guys now are the two guys everybody looks to. They are the loudest voices in the room. That was not the case last season in any stretch of the imagination. But I think those guys were good leaders last year, and now they have to be. And I think that's something both of them will really take to heart, and even if they weren't taking it to heart, they were really good leaders naturally, because that's just what they are.
Yeah, and that's a big factor, obviously, as this program continues to evolve. All right, football recruiting, obviously a lot of the class is committed. There are still a couple other missing pieces you've written about on the site in terms of that. How do you? Where are they? And they have just one official visit this weekend, as we understand.
Yeah, Kydron Jenkins,
Yeah.
the linebacker from Georgia, he's already committed.
Yeah.
So, it's an official visit, but it's a formality visit. Other than that, Purdue's counting down the days here on Malik Carr, the Rivals 250 wide receiver, who is officially visiting next weekend, might unofficially visit again tomorrow. Will announce his decision October 11th. Purdue has every reason to be very confident on Malik Carr, who is down to Purdue in Georgia. But again, Purdue has every reason to be confident on him. The bigger thing with in-game visits nowadays, the recruiting process has accelerated to the point where it's more about juniors.
Yeah.
It's more about sophomores and whatnot, because those are the guys that are going to come.
Week stuff, yeah.
They're going to come to a head in the summer. That's the class you're recruiting for immediately is pretty much already written because of what June has become. So basically, the 2021 class is what you're recruiting now, whereas a couple of years ago it would have been the 2020 class. The 2020 class is all but signed now, so now it comes down to the 2021 class. In terms of the guys who are going to be on the sideline before games, obviously, Yanni Karloftis is more than welcome in Purdue's eyes to come by Ross-Ade Stadium whenever he damn well pleases.
Just about any time.
He has an open invitation, shall we say. But also, there's a bunch of guys. Preston Terrell, a wide receiver down at Brownsburg, is a guy who is obviously doesn't live very far away, who can come whenever he wants. And there's a bunch of players in Indianapolis. There are 5 in-state players in Rivals.com's national 250 rankings in the 2021 class. They're all, within a reasonable drive of Purdue. There's a defensive lineman at Brebeuf, Joe Strickland, whose mother went to Purdue and admittedly grew up a Purdue fan. He's an hour down the road. It's a matter of how many times you get these guys who you know you're going to want on your campus when it's convenient for them to get to campus. Now, there's a lot of places these guys can go. So when you see them at Purdue, they're going out of their way to go to Purdue. That speaks to this, their interest. So how often those guys are at Purdue? Brady Allen, the quarterback from Southern Indiana as well, is a guy who's a couple hours away who has a Purdue offer. We'll see in 2021 and 2022 how often these guys end up at Purdue on game days, and that will tell you maybe where they are with these guys when the time comes for them to, be that next class up.
Yeah, Yanni Karloftis will be watching his brother, I would assume, in Ross-Ade Stadium on Saturday, and also has a home. I think they are Westside Red Devils are at home tonight against Hamilton Heights. So got a chance to see him play against Lafayette Jeff, and he has not regressed as a football player. Let's just say that he still is a really dynamic, and really it's been interesting watching him on the offensive end. And he's obviously going to be a linebacker in college, but he's got some, at least at the level that Westside plays at, he's pretty salty, as they say, at that position as well. All right, we are going to take a couple-minute break and bring in the coach, Gene Keady, who will join us for segment 3. And we will have a lot to talk about there with the coach who's got away from Carolina or Myrtle Beach in time, that's for sure, with all the terrible storms that are going on down there. But he'll be in town this weekend, and I think all the way through, maybe even through next, be in the West Lafayette area. So always great for the coach to stop by. We'll take a 2-minute break, and we'll see you then on Gold and Black Live.